to a new day. We're wrapping up with a man who I'm sure when it comes to the issues of the NPP manifesto, issues of the NPP fundraising, issues of the NPP's desire to capture the glory of political power in 2016, he will be at the center. He is the party's or the chair of the fundraising committee of the party. Ofoi Atta, I hope I got your designation right.
You did.
You chair the party's fundraising committee. Great.
Thank you, Bright.
Thanks so much for joining us. We've run out of time, but we'll make do what we have. Okay. Let's start from here. Yeah. The NPP's big deal for me is to be able to get all who are working around polling stations to work effectively before, during, and after the elections. How is this being done?
That's correct. I mean, as you saw, Bright, from the Supreme Court ruling, it sounded like the polling station should be the center of activity, and that is where it is lost and won. So the question then becomes, how do you get competent, literate, numerate, and loyal polling station agents to be able to secure the ballot? But then we went further, because if you saw what happened on the manifesto launch,
right.
the thousands of people that appeared, and their cry wanting to know how they can help and participate in this election, was what then led to us developing this product, Adopt a Polling Station. So with 500 CDs, you can adopt a polling station. But beyond that, you may have 10 CDs, 20 CDs, 50 CDs or so. That will also help you participate. And then you become literally a shareholder in that polling station, and therefore are interested in making sure that there's water, there's food, there are vehicles to bring people who can't come to the station there. You watch the count, you stay through it, and I think it will lead to an election in which we all as Ghanaians will be proud of.
I see. And you know, shareholders will certainly be looking at what goes into their investments. Yes. What did they get here then?
Well, the thing about it is that, well, if you are an MPP person, you always feel that somehow the elections were a little bit more fraudulent than you wanted.
Right.
So at this juncture, you then become a protector of your polling station and the vote. Into Bohumbain is what we would say. And more significantly, I think the democratic process then also increases because you are not just a pew warmer, just a voter, but someone who is keenly interested in what happened at the polling station. And the result is victory. Victory is what we are looking for. But I think the corollary of it is that then when we get into government, you will know clearly the average person who contributed to protect the vote. And therefore, as you are thinking policy, it is that. It's not a few fat cats who might have given you money,
right.
but truly the average MPP participant is what brought you there. And I think that's a sort of empathy and sympathy that is required.
Let me ask you two questions, answerable. Is the NPP broke? Should the NPP be broke?
Well, the question fascinates me because it takes like 3 elements or so to be able to win elections. Electoral victory will constitute the message which you have, will constitute the machinery that you have, and that will constitute the liquidity, the money that you have. I think this stage I may even add anointing, because I think the anointing...
God's anointing.
God's anointing, because I think the anointing is of the NDC, so it is now right with us. And with that, if you watched on Sunday, 2 Sundays ago, what happened? It's not money that could have brought these people there. So there's a certain spirit and a cry for change that would dominate money. So when people say we are broke, I also actually think of it as a blessing, because you are going to government to find a government that is broke. And therefore, if this is the way to burnish us and train us to be able to then appreciate what we are going to have, then it's God's hand.
The party is not broke.
The party cannot be broke. We have managed our daily bread. We haven't had excessive money, but that is good, because we are in a country in which there is very little money in the coffers, and we need that. And you know, Jonathan in Nigeria had almost 10 times what Buhari had. So the question is not money so much as, are your people galvanized? Are Ghanaians tired? Do Ghanaians want change? And are we offering a leadership of Nanado, Baumia, the Akotos, the Alanche Martins, the Kweku Kwatins, etc., to be able to bring this country back on the rail that it should be.
And the party isn't broke. In the past, Adopt a Polling Station strategy wasn't used.
No.
is this strategy a reaction to the fact that you want to protect the ballot more than just because the party isn't getting what it needs by way of resources to run these effectively?
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to tell you that there are various elements that leads to that.
Right.
But through this product, we are answering all of those questions. We have been able to raise money. We have been able to get people interested in protecting the vote. And we have been able to get people who also want to contribute in kind. And that really is the deepening of democracy that we all want. Because then people feel a part of, people feel ownership, they do their civic responsibilities, and governments then sit up to know that citizens are aware and educated.
So you talk about policy or message, you talk about resources, and then again you mentioned the machinery. How would you respond to your critics who say that you don't have a message?
How is that possible for us not to have a message? Well, especially if you have a comparative period in which you have ruled before, that you and I are aware that those were much better times than we have now. And you have these competent people. I mean, you have heard Baumia speaks over the years. How can anybody tell you, a journalist, that there is no message? You know, is that propaganda or is that truth? You know, when a government moves from 9 billion cedis worth of debt that we leave them in 2008, and by 2012, they are at 36 billion. And then by this year, they are at 105 billion. How could there not be a message?
You talk about different economies.
You create
the economy of 9 billion, the economy of
no, I'm talking about
billion.
The debt
Yes.
that they incurred.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so they mentioned the economy of the 9 billion. That was a small economy. Now it's a huge one.
No,
and
but,
so they're taking more loans.
25% of debt to GDP. And now we are talking about 72% of debt to GDP.
I see.
So you have basically no fiscal space to do anything. And that's because you think you can borrow your way out of debt, which is not possible. And therefore, the ideas of entrepreneurial creativity and really supporting businesses, not killing them with energy prices, inflation, devaluing currency. Those are the things that go to give economic freedom for people to operate. And I believe it is that we can bring back.
The currency's stability for these years, notwithstanding, you think it's a currency that's not doing well?
Well, the currency has not done well. You have
quite
seen
stable some few
It's been, yeah,
months.
I mean, these few months, it has been quite stable. But you have moved from 1.2 to 4, unless you want to forget it, but that's real. You know, you can't brush it under the carpet. You have to accept that you came and met something and this is what you have done to it. Clearly, you don't have the competence to keep an economy that stays within a certain debt to GDP model, that maintains a currency at a point in which businesses can work, that provides energy to make sure that there's productivity. I mean, the gross savings of the country has been depleted. When you run deficits of double-digit figures for about 3 years, there's no savings left. And then corporates are therefore not producing as much as they do, so they don't have savings. And individuals like you and I, you know, you get your paycheck and it's over before you can say jack. So then there's no give, and you think that you can borrow to continue. So now interest payment now constitute your second largest government expenditure. From 680 billion or so that you used to pay in 2008, you are now paying 10 billion. Okay? So you have created a situation in which things are difficult, where private sector is just aghast at what it should do, where productivity has shrunk, and therefore you are compelled to increase taxes. So it's just a very vicious cycle that you are in, and until you get a fresh look at it, you know, you are stuck and derailed.
Talking about the interest payment that you mentioned, your opponents are saying that what you're paying isn't all the loans that they took, and that the interest are some of the loans that your party took when you were in power some time ago.
Well, the issue for me, Bright, is if somebody says that, saying it is different from the fact.
Okay.
You know, if you were paying 680 million cedis, and you are now paying literally 10 billion, which is, for interest payment. Gives you no room to maneuver, and you want to blame somebody. And the question also becomes one of value for money. When you have a Legon hospital of 600 beds costing $220 million, and you have a rich rehabilitation of 200 beds costing $250 million, you begin to see how you lose money and how then, these problems...
You won't care about the equipment in these facilities?
Well, I'm talking about value. 600 beds at $230 billion, new hospital, rehabilitation, So we can play with the margins as much as we want. In the end, the number will be written down. And the number leads to an impractical way in which to live. You won't do that in your household, where you just keep borrowing. And where do you go next? So then you go to your neighbor to tax your neighbor. We are being taxed. I just saw a $90 million bond that the government did. The government is paying 6%. And Ghanaians are buying it. Meanwhile, they borrowed at 10% on international market.
All right.
So we have challenges, but I believe people should look at Adopt a Polling Station. It's a great way in which to participate and exercise your civic duties. And you can call us at a number of numbers, 02023.